It's such a privilege and an honor to be able to share my practice on this forum. This is a kind of a crucial time in the in the cycle of the year as we enter into Av, and we're given our spiritual work really to deal with our own pain and the pain of the world, and pain is something that can either shut us down or open us up, and it can either bring us to a place of isolation or it can bring us to a place of connection and compassion. And which way we go depends on our practice. So I wanted to offer to you a story from our tradition of the prophet Hosea, who had a very painful life, and particularly a painful marriage. He was married to a woman named Gomer, who betrayed him over and over and over again, and sort of sunk very low in life. And the way I think about it now is that she was an addict. And if you've ever had tried to be in love with an addict, you know that it's just the formula for heartbreak. And in the midst of his just awful, torturous life of trying to he was so in love with Gomer and so hurt by this situation in his life that he was in utter despair, and he really sunk to the deepest level of his pain. I just want to say that there's a quote by Rumi that says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." And so that's actually what happened for Hosea at the darkest moment of his life. He had a realization in the midst of that pain, of feeling that pain. And his realization was that if he could love Gomer so much, even though she betrayed him again and again, how much more so could God love us, no matter how we go astray, no matter how we become forgetful, no matter what. And it was a moment of insight and realization that completely let the light in for him into that place through the deepest wound of his life. And so and he heard from God these words, and which I want to share with you. And if you want to, Andrew, if you want to share this text, and the practice is called betrothal. So betrothal, and I call it the seven. Oh, if you want to make it, get rid of that blue thing there. Yeah. Oh, no. There it is. So there you go. So this practice of betrothal is our commitment to the larger reality, and also that larger reality mystery's commitment to us. And and these words became part of our liturgy, and especially part of when we put on the tefillin in the morning that binds us to that mystery. And so what I noticed was that there were 7 channels of commitment, 7 different ways to connect ourselves to that beloved. The first channel says, "Varestichli Leolam, I betroth you to me forever." And when we open up that channel of commitment, we are acknowledging the sense of being of the infinite within us and around us. And if that channel is open, then we can connect to God through that channel. And then we say, "Varestichli betzedek," which is, I will betroth you to me with justice. So the channel of justice is that aspect of our being that connects to God through justice, through righteousness, through action, really. And then the third channel says, uva mishpat. And I translate these words mishpat as impeccability, which means that I have a commitment not to be sloppy, to be exacting, not as a perfectionist, but as someone who cares about the details of life. And when that channel is open, I can connect through that impeccability to the divine force. The next channel says of a chesed, through love, and there's a flow of chesed pouring down all the time. Can I open to it? Can I open that channel? And then the next channel is v'rachamim, and that is the channel of compassion that allows me to send compassion out into the world from that place of connection. And then the channel that says v'astichli be'emunah, I betroth you to me in faith. And that place of a basic trust in the goodness of reality needs to be open and flowing. And then when I get to the last channel, it's kind of like all of the channels coming together to bring me to the place of da'at, of knowing, of intimacy with God. V'yadat et yah. So when I do this practice, I do it in preparation for my time to be in that intimacy with God. Because if my channels aren't open, then I can't receive a sense of being held by God. I can't rest into that deep knowing. So I want to do this with you first as a kind of a diagnostic. So as we chant each line, let's chant the line and take a breath and look into that channel to see, is it open? And if it's not, then we know where our work is. So we say, Vedastichli Leolam. And pause for a moment and feel that channel of the infinite. Vedastichli Betzedek. Just take a breath and feel that sense of justice that connects you to God. Uvamishpat. And find your commitment to impeccability. Uvachesed. Open to that flowing love. Uv'rachamim. Find your compassion. Vedastichli be'emunah. Breathe into your faith, to your basic trust. And we bring it all together in V'yadat et yah. See if you can notice the difference between to distinguish each of those 7 channels. And I'm going to chant the whole thing once more, and we'll enter into the silence of that intimacy with your own experience, with all those channels as open as they can be. Vedastichli leolam, Vedastichli betzedek, v'mishpat, v'chesed, v'rachamim, vedastichli be'emunah, v'yadat et yah. And as we enter the silence, can find yourself connected through all of those 7 channels. And when that connection is open, we can rest in that knowing, find ourselves in the intimacy with the beloved, a sense that we are held, we have been opened, and we are connected to the oneness. From there, bring your attention first to the breath, breathing through all of that place, those places of commitment in you. V'yadat etya, and then you will know the oneness. ורסתיכלי לעולם, ורסתיכלי בצדק ובמשפט ובחסד וברחמים, וירסתיך לי באמונה וידעת עטייה. And Andrew, would you share that text one more time? ורסתיך לי לעולם, ורסתיך לי בצדק ובמשפט ובחסד ורחמים, וירסתיך לי באמונה וידעת את You can stop sharing and invite everyone to just look around the Zoom room and receive each other's support for our practice. And the practice that Hosea gave to us through his the transformation of his deepest, darkest pain. To let that be an inspiration to be able to encounter our own pain and the pain of the world as a kind of the raw material, the place to do our work, the place to open us in compassion. And if you look around at the Zoom room, you can see all of that compassion flowing out of the faces here and sending it back. And to know that you're doing the work, but you're doing it with support. Amen.
Thank you so much, Shefa. We will have a chance to reflect and answer, ask and talk about some questions related to the practice, of the teaching, to the chant in just a moment. If you need to leave us, we wish you tzeitzchem l'shalom, farewell. And we also now have an opportunity for those who are reciting Kaddish, remembering anybody holding that they're holding in heart or mind to do so. Thank you, Andrew, for putting the text on the screen. If you'd like to unmute yourself and join me in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, you are welcome to do so. And to enter into the chat anybody who you're remembering today. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbi Alma divrach v'chayechon uvyomechon
וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן, רבה מבורך, לנו מיומי דרך, יתברך וישתבח ויקומם ויתפאר, חיים עלינו ולכל ישראל ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל. אמרו אמן.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay. I'm just going to press mute here. Shefa, if you want to unmute yourself, and we'll bring Shefa back up for a conversation. Okay. So thank you so much, Shefa, for that teaching and for the chant that goes with it. Always a special delight to have that as part of our practice, and your teaching and your music. And I want to invite anyone to just share any questions that you've got. If you can put in the chat question in all caps if you have a question, and otherwise if you want to share reflections, that's all really helpful to us. I was thinking, Shefa, about the text and the places that it comes up ritually. I mean, it's a text that we use, those of us who put on tefillin, it's we recite, those verses as we're literally, betrothing and putting on, wrapping tefillin on the fingers. And it's from the Haftorah from Bamidbar, I think, as I recall correctly, right? And I wonder, I was just thinking about, the questions of trust and betrothal and forgiveness and how all of that, the background to that. I just want to invite you to just reflect a little bit more on maybe in the moment that we're in, these questions of trust and forgiveness, and how, to me, that's what these verses are really inviting us, these seven channels, as you describe them, are helping us really plumb that and strengthen it. And I wonder if does that resonate? Does that come up for you as well?
I call them the 7 channels of commitment because there are different ways for me to connect, or different ways that the energy gets blocked. And so, in order to have that sense of intimacy, I have to open up all of those channels. And when I find one that's blocked, then I know this is the work I need to do.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I remember after I created this practice, I was practicing it, and I noticed that my channel for rachamim, for compassion, was closed.
Mm.
And I looked into it, and I saw that I was angry with someone, and I was trying to avoid confronting them.
Mm.
And until I did that, my own channel of compassion couldn't open because I was sort of, holding it back. So I had to go and do that work, which, I try to avoid conflict, but I couldn't have my compassion open if I did that. And so it's a diagnostic for me to say what is open and what needs work today. And the work is often dealing with our pain in some way. Because if we don't deal with it, we'll shut down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's a beautiful line from Parker Palmer that I often quote about, how tensions can either, cause our hearts to break apart or to break open, right? And I think it's a similar, that pain, how do we manage that? How do we respond to it? Do we shut down, or do we break open into something new? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really beautiful. There's a few questions that have come up. There's a textual question. Are the verses from Hosea a quotation of what he said to his wife?
It's
Good question.
actually what God is saying to us,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
Um, and but his troubles with his wife really sent him to that place of despair, and then realization and opening. And
yeah.
so and these are words that are often said in a marriage ceremony, and I think that we learn to say them to each other, we learn to say them to God, and we learn to hear God saying them to us.
Yeah. Andrew, I'm just asking, or someone asked, I can't actually see the screen, but I'm not sure if we're both pinned, but if you can make sure we're both pinned, that would be helpful. Thank you. Um, uh, Alexa said that I really never thought much about this text, but it really connected for me through your teaching today, though I'm going to have Debbie Friedman's tune for this text stuck in my head for the next week also. Thank you. There's a question, Arnold asked the question, is it ironic that Hosea should talk about betrothal so beautifully when his own marriage was a mess. Um,
It's
well,
actually, it's fitting. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, that's how we learn. We learn about commitment through losing it,
yeah,
and having it return to us in some other form, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's, I think it feels like it's fitting. And the question is, like any kind of pain that I'm experiencing now, how do I transform that, or how do I use it for what brings me into a place of realization rather than bitterness?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, Chef, when you were just saying that, the image came to my mind of my mother, who I've talked about, I think, on this sip before. She has Alzheimer's, and she's 84. And when she called me, I think 7 years ago or so, to share her diagnosis, and she called me. I was standing in the middle of the it was Sunday morning. I was in the frozen aisle at the supermarket, I remember, and she said, "I have some news." I said, "What?" She said, "Well, I have Alzheimer's, and tomorrow I start speech therapy, and I'm really excited for what I'm going to learn." And her name is Happy, and Kishma He. She's true to her name, and she has really been a very unusual Alzheimer's patient who has managed not to become bitter and angry in the way that so often that disease can unfold for people, but somehow, has been able to respond in a way that's kind of deepened her appreciation for her capacity for joy. And some of that may be in her control and a lot may not, but to me, it's a model, as you're talking about, of how the pain of living with something, you know, it can open us up. And I think that gets to a bit of the question that I think Ricky was asking about. um, Pain either shuts us down or opens us up. And, how do we do that? And I invite you just to respond a little bit more of how does that work for you? That helping to nurture that kind of response of opening up more.
You know, it's a journey through, so that what keeps me from doing the work of transformation is that when I feel something and I don't want to feel it, I push it away. All my energy goes into resisting what I'm feeling, distract me from what I'm feeling. I might go and try to look into the refrigerator and say, "Is there anybody here that can help me?" It's like I don't want to feel what I'm feeling, but the only way to transform it, or to take that road towards insight and realization, is to actually be with it,
Mm,
to be with whatever the pain is, even when it feels overwhelming, but to soften to it, to open to it, and to use it then as a journey towards compassion,
mm,
towards opening rather than shutting down.
mm,
With support, yeah, and I think the support part is important for it. That we don't want to try to numb ourselves. We want to feel it in a way where where we can be awakened by it, and say, "Oh, this is part of my curriculum to move
mhm.
through this, to be able to come to a more expanded state."
And that we're not on our own in doing that to the extent that we
Yes.
can, right? Having, as you said, having support. I think for a lot of people in this community, that's one of the ways it functions. So,
And that
that's,
whatever pain you're feeling, there are others also in that same place. And so it can be a form of connection to others who are experiencing that pain. And there's a kind of an alchemy that happens in it as we enter through it. Like I think that's what Hosea went through. He had, he was moved by the pain of his life into a much wider perspective, and
mm,
a sense that there's something mythical about each of our lives, and we're on a journey of awakening. So my prayer is, as I say, so God, I want to use everything from my awakening, even this.
mm. Nancy had a wonderful question here about the interplay of the different channels. She says, I felt like I needed to call on compassion to work with feelings that came up with justice and my sense of not doing enough, and emunah, trusting in the goodness of reality. So, yeah, do you want to say a little more about like how these 7 channels might
Oh, it's,
interplay?
I think it's important to stay with each of them, like as to learn how to open each of those channels before we go to the interplay
Mm,
place.
hmm
Because you know, um, once we open one, we can help. That can help us to open another of them as well. But I think I've been doing this for years, and to get those subtle differences, that it really feels, like my connection to God through justice really feels different. And I don't want to shut it down. And I also need all of those other channels
mm,
to be open. But that's just the beginning, really. This is the diagnostic. And then I'm given the work. Okay, how do I open that channel? And then I call on all the other practices I know in order to open that channel.
yeah, yeah. I think that might be a response also to a question that came in directly about if all the channels are feeling closed, right? Because we're feeling so hurt. Um, but I think you just kind of responded to that question, which is it actually doesn't matter if one of them is feeling closed or all of them are feeling closed, then the practice is how do we, what do we draw on to open them up?
For
Is that
me,
right?
I sing
Yeah.
to open them up too, because when I
Mhm.
begin the chant, they might be all closed. But as I pour my commitment, my longing, whatever kind of beauty that I can bring to it, that is what helps me to then soften my resistance and open each of those channels. So that's the
Mhm.
practice itself. Um, and you don't just do it once, you just keep on doing it until it becomes clear. Um, like, because this is our tefillin. This is our tefillin. These words are what binds us to this, the sense of the cosmos.
Mm,
And when we're disconnected, our prayer is meant to reconnect us. That's
mm,
what tshuva is, the process of reconnecting in the places that got disconnected through the pain of life.
yeah. And I think that might be then a way of thinking about the betrothal language, right? Is there we go. Andrew was just fixing that. The betrothal language of um of that reconnection, right? And what I love about the betrothal image is also that it's two agents, it's two beings, it's two, and so it's but also part of some larger totality. Um and so there's agency for us in there, and there's a role for us to play in there as there's a role for the divine, and we're finding each other, we're finding our way to one another.
And we're
And
finding our commitment to do the
yeah,
work that
yeah,
will reconnect us.
yeah, yeah.
And we might
Uh,
not know how to do it, but when we have a commitment, that's the step we have to take, is to articulate that commitment, which means to open up that channel.
yeah. Um, just there's been so many good comments and questions. There was also a question somebody asked, you have 7 channels, there are 7 lower sefirot. Do you see a connection between the two of them, or is that incidental here?
Well, many of my students have made all of these different connections, and for me, I just want to just stay in this particular system. And
Yeah.
it hasn't been helpful to me, but play with it.
If it works for you, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Um, I want to see if I There was also a question here about how might someone who doesn't conceptualize a personal God relate to the verb of betrothal in this context, which I guess goes a little to what we were just talking about. Yeah, I wonder what comes up for you when you hear that
It's like
question.
there's sometimes I feel isolated and disconnected from the universe, from the whole cosmos, and sometimes I feel right at home, integral to the whole cosmos. And I want, so that image of betrothal to me is just it's a metaphor that allows me to feel connected, to feel part of it all, to heal that place of isolation and alienation in me. And
Mhm.
that to me is pretty kind of core work of core spiritual work, because as long as we're caught in the illusion of separation, um, we're lost, really.
Yeah.
And so we can use the romantic love kind of metaphor just to lean into and let it soften us, open us, and to be able to know the whole cosmos as as my beloved.
Yeah. I love
It's
that.
just it's
It's
just
beautiful.
helpful. It's just helpful.
And I think that's a response to there's a little bit of a response to the question there of, what happens if singing doesn't work for us, or it's feeling painful, or, and I think sort of the response to that is, as you said before with the previous question, like with everything, none of this is prescriptive. If it works for you, that's great. And if it doesn't, check it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other wonderful things to try. And it's not one size fits all. So,
And
um,
and try it means like I might have to do it for a half hour before it opens me up,
yeah,
and it might not happen at the first. I might feel resistance at first.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
um,
Thank you. All right, we're a little over our time,
okay.
and I know and I know your time is valuable, and I have someplace I've got to also get to, but
Yeah.
I know we weren't able to answer every question. There've been so many good ones, but thank you so much, Shefa. It's such a gift to have you here and to be able to practice with you, and thank you everybody for your participation and your questions and your practice, and we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. So. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And thanks you to Andrew on the tech today.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.